Hello and welcome to Honest Talk Radio. I'm Michaela, your host, and on Wednesday nights, we're live with Sanjay Raja, actor, author, nutrition and fitness expert, but most importantly, dad to twins. And Wednesday nights are our night to talk about all things health and wellness regarding food, but tonight's topic is even more special, in my opinion, because we're going to talk about alcohol, what to drink and what not to drink. So, Sanjay, welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you doing?
Great. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm good. So I know this show is a little bit odd for us because we usually talk about fitness and food and all that good stuff. But when I started my company in 2012, the first question I got was, "Hey, what could I drink that won't totally make me feel bad the night after?" So I just compiled a list of all these alcoholic beverages and then did my own research. And this type of show seems to be one that gets pretty interactive. So I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, me too. I know that a lot of friends, and especially the older we get, that weight can pack on with drinking. But does it have to be that way?
No, not necessarily. You gotta, if you're, when we were in our 20s, and I remember my late teens and 20s, so 18, 19, 20, I'd go out in college and go drinking all night and have no after effects and eat McDonald's. It'd be just fine,
Right.
But it doesn't work that way later in life, So it just depends on what you drink, how much you drink, and hopefully you're not mixing different types of alcohol, which is usually where people get in trouble.
Yeah. Oh gosh, to be 20 again. I can't even stay up late, just late in general, let alone a night drinking.
Same here. Yeah. It's a different world. We both have kids and different responsibilities. So, but occasionally when you do go out with your significant other, whoever it may be, you want to have a good time, but not feel the after effects the next day. So there are some ways you can minimize that. So today is all about asking those questions, and we'll do our best to answer them.
Absolutely. So guys, if you're listening, don't be shy. Hop on here, ask your questions, call or text us at 575-541-3323. And Jane will be standing by to field your questions. So, okay, so like you said, this is a little bit of an off-topic show. We talk a lot about nutrition, fitness, and a lot of times when people are heading down that path of health and wellness, they eliminate alcohol or think they need to eliminate it completely. So what would be, as we start off this topic, what's the first thing that you want to share?
I guess the most common question is I get a lot is wine, because you see all these studies about how wine is good for you, and
Mm-hmm.
a couple glasses a day is very beneficial to your health, and it is, but within moderation. And the first, regarding wine, one of the tips I would recommend for people is the drier the wine, the better, because there's less sugar, versus a more fruity wine, right?
Right.
So stick mostly to the reds versus the whites, and kind of go with their drier wine if you want to, limit your sugar intake, which I harp on that constantly.
Right.
But so try to go that route if you're drinking wine. But moreover, I guess the general point is this, and that is, if you're going to drink, try not to mix your alcohols. If you're going to drink wine, stick to wine. If you're going to drink beer, stick to beer. You can do a few mixed drinks here and there. But the way people get in trouble calorically is really simple. Mixed drinks probably have the highest amount of calories because they contain sugar. They contain all these little concoctions that turn in funny colors and, different flavors. So it all comes down to mixed drinks are probably the biggest enemy, the biggest culprit in terms of calories and sugar and all that stuff that you want to avoid. So the grain alcohols like vodka and tequila are probably number one and 1A as far as the best alcohols you can drink, because they both have curative properties. Like tequila has natural probiotics, and grain alcohol like vodka and tequila have the least amount of calories.
Vodka's made with potatoes, right? Or at least some types of vodka.
Some types of vodka, yes.
Okay.
But, those potatoes get fermented, and then those sugars get converted into alcohol, and then you get basically you get alcohol. So
right.
it contains the least amount of sugars. But if you were going to say 1 and 1A, so tequila is number 1, and 1A would be vodka.
Okay. So do you recommend, if you are going to indulge, having drinking those straight, because it's all the other stuff that, like adding, what's the stuff that makes it pink or red, like in Shirley Temples? I know that's added to a lot of mixed drinks.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I would tell you the best drink by far. And I learned this because I was in Texas probably like 4 or 5 years ago. And I guess their favorite drink out there is pickle juice and vodka.
Pickle juice?
Yeah.
Huh.
So pickle juice and vodka is probably the best drink because the vodka dehydrates you, but the pickle juice rehydrates you and gives you back electrolytes.
Wow, yeah, I never thought about putting those two together, but that makes sense because when you are a marathon runner or into ultra long sports, extreme sports, pickle juice is what they tell you to take for, to get those electrolytes and rehydrate. Interesting.
Yeah, so I was in Austin, and the vodka of choice out there in Austin was Tito's vodka. Mm-hmm. And people would mix Tito's and pickle juice all the time. That was the drink. And I actually highly recommend that to anybody who's looking to count their calories and actually feel halfway decent the next day. So that's probably the best one right there.
That's very interesting. All right, I'm going to have to try that now. So going back to wine, I know that for me, that would probably be my drink of choice on an occasion. I'm not a huge drinker, but I know there's a whole lot of, moms out there or even like memes that go around saying, it's been a hard day, bring out the wine, or you'll find me, you'll find me with the bottle of wine or something like that. And I can somewhat relate to those comments, but
right.
It's like you said, drinking drier wines, staying away from the ones that have more sugar. But realistically, what is the timeline of drinking? Like, should you, what is it okay to have when you're on a diet or when you're I don't even want to say diet because we don't talk about diets. We talk about healthy lifestyle changes.
That's right. There's no magic formula to when you should drink and how you should drink. It really comes down to the quantity. Mm-hmm. And it comes down to how you space it out. So now I can say by personal experience, my New Year's when I was in my 20s was always a big deal because we would do the pre-party before the actual party. And the pre-party actually got me drunk, and I couldn't even make it to the actual party.
Right.
So what ended up happening is we drink, and we drink hard alcohol and do shot. And of course, it's like a ticking time bomb. It didn't hit you, you feel good, and then it eventually hits your bloodstream, and you're like, oh my God, here we go. And you're on this euphoric ride, and everybody's experience is different. So first rule is don't do consecutive drinks in a row of hard alcohol, like 1, 2, 3, 4. And people say, I can tolerate it. I'm sure you can. But try to limit that. Space those out. Okay? Mm-hmm. Number 2 is try to eat food before you drink alcohol. So have food with the consumption of alcohol. It minimizes the effect as well.
Right. So talking about food, but while you're on that real quick, I know from experience that the food I tended to go for when I knew I was going to be drinking was the breads and the real starchy products. So, and obviously if I'm trying to live a healthier lifestyle, that probably isn't what I should be going for. So.
Yeah. So, because what happens is the starchier foods that you consume are another form of simple sugars, right?
Right.
So you're consuming simple sugars in that form, and then you consume, let's say, wine or whatever it may be, and you're consuming another simple sugar in the form of alcohol, depending on the type of wine you drink.
Mm-hmm.
So you've basically increased your sugar intake. And wine is so hard to tell because the older wine gets, the more it ferments, right?
Right.
So they can't really give you like an exact calculation how much sugar. So they give you a range saying, at this time period, it'll contain this much, sugar. So that being said, drink lots and lots of water before you plan on drinking because you're going to get dehydrated. That's just a natural reaction of the body is to get dehydrated when you drink alcohol.
Right.
So I would say drink lots of water, number one. Number two, space out your drinks and space it with food. And then three, there should be a cutoff period because you don't, people say, I love to fall asleep drunk. Well, it's actually not a good sleep because you don't actually hit REM sleep when you're drunk. You kind of hit this grogginess and passing out, then you wake up in the middle of the night, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So have a cutoff point where you say at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, okay, I am done. That's my last one. And then that way your body can naturally just kind of get into a circadian rhythm and you can fall asleep. It won't be the best sleep, but it'll be a lot better than going out and passing out.
Right. So guys, just to be clear, we're not promoting alcoholism or drinking excessively, but there are ways to do it smartly. And Sanjay, you've got some great tips for that. Another, very common alcoholic beverage that's consumed is beer. And I know that that's something that can definitely pack on the pounds and, play a role in weight gain. But it can be so good. So
fortunately I've been blessed with the fact that I don't like the taste of beer, so I never really indulged in it ever. I never found a beer I liked. But let's take a little quiz. And what would you say is one of the best beers nutritionally?
Oh my gosh.
What would if you were to take a guess?
Well, in my head, I'm thinking like a lighter beer because it has. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question.
just take a guess. Of all the beers you drank in your life, what's a good one? What do you think? What do you think is having a beneficial effect on you versus a detrimental effect on you?
Beneficial effect on me, beer. I like beer, but I don't love beer. I can do without. I tend to go for the lighter ones, like the ales or the I'm drawing a blank. Shinerbach. That's one that I like.
Okay. All right. So, one of the best beers to drink out there, calorically wise, because it's low calorie, is Guinness.
Oh, that's
Guinness.
Opposite of what I would thought.
Yeah. Guinness, even though it looks dark and murky and I can't handle it, a lot of people love it. But actually, it's one of the lower calorie beers, and it is actually pretty light on the system. Now, one of the beers that rates really, I've got a chart of alcohol that's listed on my website at teamnoexcusesfitness.com. I downloaded this chart a long time ago. And what it does is it breaks it down to carb to alcohol ratio. So what you want is a lower carb ratio, and it grades it from A through F. Okay. So basically, I'm looking at the beers right now. And what was your beer? You said Shinerbach?
Shinerbach, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard
People
of that.
People are probably cringing at me saying that, but
I want to see if that's even on the list. Let's see. I'm not seeing it. That doesn't mean it's it's a bad beer by any means, but I am not seeing it. But one of the top of the list as far as good beers is, like I said, Heineken. You know what rated really high as far as beers go?
What?
Would be Natural Light. And there's a reason why, because most of it's just water. That's why.
Right. Well, like the cheaper beers, like the Budweisers, and those are the cheaper beers that make sense. My dad used to be, unfortunately, before he passed away, he was a beer connoisseur, and anytime anybody had those type of beers, he'd be like, "That's just water." And well, Dad,
Budweiser rated around the C+ range.
Okay.
But Bud Light, like lime, and that rated F, really badly.
Wow.
Yeah, because the calorie to alcohol ratio is really high. So higher calories, and then you got all the lights coming out and the ultras coming out, right?
Right.
So anything that's the 55 calories or below rates really high, like a B plus, A minus kind of range, because it's very low calorie, very few carbs, and so it's going to rate naturally higher that way.
Is it true that, I mean, alcohol is really, that they consider it like, empty calories? Because there isn't a whole lot of...
Well, it depends. Like, for example, for beer, a lot of beers, yes. But when you think about like tequila is a great alcohol in the sense it contains natural probiotics. So it actually helps your digestive tract, number one.
Okay.
So that so much is not empty calories. It's very minimal calories, but very impactful calories is what I like to call it,
Mm-hmm.
tequila. Grain alcohol, like I said, very few calories, high alcohol content because all those carbs have been converted into alcohol. And so it is basically drinking straight alcohol, but some of it has some beneficial effects. Certain beers rate higher than others based upon how many calories they have. But, beer in general, that you see all these studies that says, some beer is good, throughout the day, right? You've seen all these studies where, have a beer, once a day, whatever it may be. And that's the thing. Everything has to be taken within context and moderation.
Well, yeah, because they're trying to sell. It's a consumer.
It is, yeah. They're trying to increase the market by doing these kind of studies. Now, are they double-blind, placebo, peer-reviewed? I mean, no, these are not studies based on that at all. Right. They're just saying the fermented wheat that's in there has some beneficial health effects. Sure, I'm sure it does have some beneficial health effects, but is it greater than the detrimental effects of consuming too much, right? And so what happens is people read that and say, oh, see, I could drink my beer. I can have 3 or 4. No, you're not adding. Every beer you drink that day does not increase the beneficial health.
Yeah. Well, just like the wine, right? 1 glass of red wine, is supposed to be good for you. But if you have 10, then you're probably everything in moderation.
Yeah, so it's the law of diminishing returns. You can have 1 be good, 2 maybe, but 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Guess what? You have now gone to the dark side. So,
here's a question for you. I know personally, I've read a lot of studies when for breastfeeding, they say that alcoholic beverages such as beer, because of the properties that are in it, can promote breast milk production. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah. So I've heard about that. So the fermentation process of the wheat actually helps promote lactation. But my advice on that is, you can get the same effects, if not greater, by putting a lot of cumin in your food to promote lactation as well. So you don't necessarily have to go the route of having alcohol. There's a lot of natural spices like cumin, which are really great to promote lactation as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because, I mean, although it can, but desperate times call for desperate measures sometimes. And,
right.
If you can grab a bottle of beer instead of having to cook something when you're feeling that, you need to pump up your milk supply. But then on the other hand, I just lost my train of thought. I was talking about breastfeeding and alcohol. Oh man.
So you were mentioning about breastfeeding, alcohol, and pumping up the breast milk supply. As a last resort, if we had a can of beer or something laying around.
Right. It was still. It'll come to me. Yeah, we did just hear from the audience. Grabbing a beer is easier, and it is unless you have learned something from our previous podcast, and that is to prepare your food. Because then, if you know that you're wanting to, your goal is to up your milk production, then you could prepare with lots of cumin.
Meal prep, yes.
Meal prep, yes. So on that, going back to those that are listening that are on this bandwagon, and if I really want to eat healthy, I really want to start exercising and change my lifestyle to be one of health and wellness as opposed to survival, which is oftentimes what I like to call it. What are some ways to, we've kind of talked about this, but ways to focus, to maybe refocus on your health and wellness as opposed to the alcohol, and a slight indulgence every now and again is fine, but.
Well, it comes back to, I like to bring it back to the why question, which is, do you absolutely need alcohol to get you through the day? Mm-hmm. I mean, if you do, then there's a bigger problem to be addressed, right?
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, do you need alcohol to relax and, unwind a little bit? Sure. A lot of people do it, and there's nothing wrong with that. So, it's all about living a balanced lifestyle. So I would say this, it just comes back to my original point, which is, we talk about meal prepping. Also prep your system to consume alcohol. You don't have to do any hard work. So if you're going to go out that night, or you're going to do something in a celebratory event or a gathering, have your breakfast in the morning, drink water throughout the day, and increase your water intake as much as you can. And then that way you're prepared. Your system is ready to go to consume that alcohol. Mm-hmm. So, you don't feel a lot of the effects, because it happens, if you're with your spouse, and they're driving, you may have 1, 2, 3, 4 glasses of wine or whatever it may be. And as long as you're not driving, keeping yourself safe from others, you're good. Yeah. But here's the thing. You got to deal with the after effects the next morning at times. So in order to kind of minimize the dehydration, obviously drink the water. But, a great thing to do is in the morning, drink a shot of pickle juice. I've seen people do that. And that will increase your electrolytes, and that will get you rehydrated a lot faster than drinking just water.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to try the pickle juice thing. That's fascinating to me. We do have a question from the audience, and that is, alcohol labels don't say what they're made with. Is there trustworthiness in the alcohol industry? So by law, they have to say certain ingredients, but they're not going to say all the ingredients, right? And they put down a percentage, it's not an exact number, but it's a percentage alcohol by volume. So like a 16-ounce can by volume will have 4.5% alcohol within that 16 ounces. So I'm not going to say it's a leap of faith. So I'll premise it with this, and that is the standards in this country much better than other countries as far as labeling for alcohol? 100%. Now, I grew up in India, and I go visit there often. And you've got there's no such thing as moonshine. People make their own alcohol and sell it on the street. You have no idea what it is. And over there, it's very legal, and it happens. And even the mass-produced alcohol are sketchy labels at best. So, so here, do we have some standards? Yes, we do. But one thing I want to make note, and this is interesting, that a lot of people don't know, is that that amber color you get with the Pilsner, like a Budweiser, Bud Light, things like that, right? Yeah.
Get the amber color. So you know where that amber color comes from in a lot of beers?
Oh, I don't think I want to know.
We did a show like this before, right?
We did.
But since we're on the subject, might as well talk about it. So if you see on the label, isinglass, okay?
Okay.
Isinglass is fish bladder, okay?
That's right. I do remember you saying that.
Yeah, so that gives it some of the beers this ambery color, to give it this nice, tan color to make it, to make it more appealing. So are they being 100% truthful as far as what they put in there? No, but they've got code names for some of the ingredients that they put in there. Absolutely, they do. Just like with any food product, they've got code words because they can't put fish bladder on it. You know what I mean? So.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, that would be enough to turn everybody off. Why do they even mess with it? Why mess with the real thing?
Well, here's the thing. They have to be able to make it appealing to the eye. Okay. And, mass-produced beer, I'm not a beer connoisseur, so I can't tell you the process in which it's made, but anything mass-produced, they try to find ingredients that make it look appealing, but also reduce the cost of production.
Yeah.
So typically, those ingredients cost less than, I guess, maybe putting more wheat into the beer to get that color that you're looking for. So it's always about driving costs down.
So one of my favorite drinks, I'm just going to say it, is a Bloody Mary. And it doesn't have to just be for breakfast. I love Bloody Marys because I love the spiciness, especially when it's made well.
Right.
What are you going to tell me about Bloody Marys?
Is there a particular type of tomato juice you like to use with it?
No, not really. I don't really make my own, and it's every now and again when we're in Vegas and, out on the strip or something, I indulge in a Bloody Mary. But I know a lot of women, like my family members on my husband's side, they'll drink a Bloody Mary the next day after a hangover. I don't know if it helps, but that just seems to be.
So what's the alcohol in the Bloody Mary that they put in there?
Vodka, typically.
Vodka. Okay, I gotcha. So the tomato juice is contains vitamins, minerals, and all that good stuff, and hopefully it's low sugar content.
Mm-hmm.
But so you're getting some benefit there. But I would say, here's the thing: the fewer the ingredients in your mixed beverage, the better. Okay, just like the fewer the ingredients when you buy a prepackaged meal. The fewer the ingredients, the better. So that's kind of the rule of thumb. So, and Bloody Mary, you kind of know what goes into there. It's it's tomato juice, and do they put any besides pepper or anything? Do they put anything else in there? Like hot sauce? Do they put any hot sauce in there?
Yeah, I think typically there's hot sauce in there. Usually like a Tabasco, which is not my favorite, but that's typically what you would find.
Yeah, so you got the Tabasco element, which is actually got cayenne pepper in it, which is great for the body. So those things, those add to a beneficial effect, and of course you got the vodka on the other side, which is low sugar, grain alcohol, and hopefully your tomato juice to vodka ratio. Yeah, is what really is going to determine how healthy and how much of an effect it has on you. So hopefully you have more tomato juice versus vodka. So.
Right. Well, we have a question from the audience, so Jane is ready to ask that for us. Go ahead, Jane.
Yeah, so what about like whiskey as medicine? Last week we talked about like cold alternatives, and people I know use like hot toddies with whiskey to get rid of cold. What about that?
Okay, so whiskey, so my parents actually almost tried that on me when I was a little kid. I remember this. And here's kind of the background of it. Like a hot toddy, what is a hot toddy? It contains whiskey, honey, lemon juice, right?
Right.
And hot water. So basically, the lemon juice and honey is a natural cough suppressant, okay? And then the whiskey itself, basically the theory is you're trying to kill anything in your system with the alcohol, right?
Right.
So if it's the bacteria, you're trying to kill it. Now, does it work that way? Not typically, but is there a detrimental effect? I would say, if you're doing a little shot of whiskey, if you got a cold or something like that, I don't know how much benefit you're getting because you're dehydrating your body. So that's why I guess the hot toddy is more effective because you got the lemon juice and honey to offset the whiskey. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So you might as well go and get your recipe for your tea and leave the whiskey out.
It'll be a lot cheaper for you too. So,
That's right. That's right. We have another question from the audience. Go ahead, Jane.
Yeah. So the question is, what's a good alternative for drink mixers, if not juice? Is there like a better sweetener that someone could use?
So if not juice, drink mixer. So, I would say the mixers itself contain a lot of chemicals, a lot of different sugars, and a lot of different concoctions and they're probably only like 10 to 20% juice, right?
Right.
At most. I would say go with straight juice versus using the mixer. That's what I would say.
That's a good point. Or even maybe this wouldn't add sweetness or flavor, but if you're kind of cutting the alcohol, the shock of the alcohol, like a club soda or sparkling water, as opposed to the sweeteners.
Yeah, when in doubt, so it's the same question of should I drink regular Coke or Diet Coke? Drink regular Coke versus drinking Diet Coke, because Diet Coke is far more harmful and creates more of addiction than regular Coke does.
So that's kind of it's a little bit backwards what you were talking about with the beer, industry, with the ones that they're coming out with the ultra light and things like that. Because in my head, that just means that they've added something else to combat what they took out.
Well, so you talk about the light beers like the Michelob Ultras and things like that. Yeah. So what they're doing is basically they're reducing. I guess what they're doing is they're reducing the amount of carbs they actually put in the beer, right? So it's mostly water that you're drinking, and you're drinking less alcohol, more water.
Okay.
And so actually, it's just a low calorie beer by any measure. And you're paying a high price for the health effects of basically drinking more water than alcohol is what you're doing.
Good point. But it's different than like in a diet soda.
Right. So if you want to do that, I'd say go buy yourself like a 36-pack of Natural Light for $5. You'll be good to go, right?
Yeah.
So
that's a good point.
So think about it that way. But what was your second part of your question?
I was saying, but alternatively, Diet Coke versus Coke, all the diet means is they took out the sugar, but they replaced it with chemicals.
Yeah, so most Diet Coke contains what's called aspartame,
mm-hmm.
right? So aspartame is a synthetic sugar derivative that is, 300 times more sweeter than sugar, apparently. And it's supposed to basically mimic the effects without the actual effects. But in I don't know if it's intentionally or unintentionally, it actually makes you more addicted to drinking it than natural Coke would.
Right.
So I think maybe that was the intention, because I'm not going to say they did it for our benefit. I can't say that at all. And then when they do these laboratory tests, when they inject the laboratory rat, its body weight in aspartame, it forms cancer, right? So so you have to take those studies with a grain of salt. But still, think about. I see people do this all the time. They drink like 2-liter bottles of Diet Coke, and so you are almost drinking your body weight in aspartame. So I can see how people can have a lot of detrimental effects by drinking that stuff.
Yeah. And so, like you said, if you are going to use some sort of soda as a mixer, if you will, with alcohol, then just use the real stuff, not the diet stuff.
Yeah, it's lower calorie, fine, but just use the real stuff, because you're already getting kind of the you're okay. So here's how I look at it. And I bring it back to this analogy. Like, I don't understand anybody who drinks caffeine-free Diet Coke. What exactly are you buying right now? Like, I bring it back to that because it's like you're going to pay a super high cost for something that contains virtually nothing.
Yeah.
So, if you're going to have a Coke, have a Coke. If you're going to, if you're going to have a mixed drink, fine, have your mixed drink. Don't put the Diet Coke in there.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Let's see. We have a couple more questions. So just to recap what you've been saying about alcohol is, there's a safe way truly to consume it without doing too much damage. Ultimately, obviously, the best thing to do would be to probably stay away from it if you are truly trying to be on this path of health and wellness. But an indulgence.
Like I said, here's the thing. Anytime you cut off something completely, very few people can cut off stuff completely and be fine. I'm one of those people where I can just cut things out and I'm okay. But a lot of people can't do that. So it makes you want it that much more, right? So I would say this. Just use a rational kind of mindset when you say, okay, I'm going to go out, have some drinks. You can be healthy. I know a lot of my colleagues, very healthy people who drink. but they drink very smart, meaning they prep themselves before they do it.
Right.
Or if they do drink, they're drinking drinks like we talked about, which is a shot of tequila or vodka and pickle juice. So there's ways to minimize it and not even feel any of the effects of it. You just got to be creative and just kind of think about, what am I trying to accomplish tonight? Am I trying to get a buzz, or am I trying to get wasted? That's, it comes down to those two questions, you know? So.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you know, it definitely brings it back to the why. We have one more question from the audience. Go ahead, Jane.
So we were wondering about wines and pesticides.
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. So, you know, I am not a big fan of Trader Joe's. And the reason why is because Trader Joe's has a lot of stuff that they claim to be healthy and organic, but it's very cheaply done.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And the reason why I bring up Trader Joe's is because they have this wine there called 2 Buck Chuck.
Yes.
Right?
I know that wine.
I think a lot of people know that wine. And you know what the problem with that wine is? That a report came out that wine, the way it's harvested, because they can keep the price of the wine down, is because of the way it's manufactured and created. So a lot of the wine contained a lot of dead bugs. A lot of the wine contained a lot of stuff you don't need in your wine because of the way it was harvested, because it was mass produced, and the whole goal was to drive the cost down.
Mm.
So cheap wine, basically, you don't know what's in your wine. Okay. Now, I'm not saying expensive wine is probably, free from any sort of harmful chemicals. I'm sure there's in it, but because they take the time and they care for the wine, they don't want anything to mess with the flavor. They try to keep it as intact as possible. Okay. So You don't have to buy $1,000 bottle of wine. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that.
Well, I think it goes to knowing the source, really knowing.
Exactly.
I mean, that goes with food, wine, anything that you're.
And think about it. Here's the thing. Like, I'll give you another analogy here. I was in college, and a buddy of mine came down. We went drinking that night, and we were poor college kids. And back then, we thought Jose Cuervo was like the gold standard of tequila, right? Back then. Right. And so we ended up drinking tequila that night, but we went with a cheaper option called Montezuma's Revenge. And oh my God, the next morning, it took its revenge out on us, like, in the worst way. It did. I mean, I felt so horrible. I felt horrible for like 3 days.
I've had those moments.
And the point is, you get what you paid for. I mean, it's so true. It is so true. And I'll give you another story. So I was, and this relates to the wine question as well, which is I actually was recruited by a surgeon in Atlanta, probably about, almost 9 years ago, to come consult for his company. And what he would do is anybody who came to work with him, he'd take out to a restaurant, right? Mm-hmm. And this guy was a big wine connoisseur. So he had his own wine locker at the restaurant. So I'm like, all right, this guy's pretty high end and he's really into wine. And I wasn't really into wine back then. And so he hands me a glass of wine and he says, hey, I want you to try this. And I said, listen, I don't want you to waste your glass of wine on me, because I can't tell the difference between, like, expensive wine and peach Riunite, right? I can't tell the difference, right? It's all the same to me. So he's like, no, just try it. So I drank this wine. It went down so smooth. My God, it was so good. I was like, this is the first glass of wine I actually can say I tasted it, and it tasted really, really good. And he goes, all right, have a second. So I had a second glass of wine. I'm like, and I said, listen, I don't mean to impose, but can I have a third? And he goes, all right, fine. But then he looks at me and he says, don't get used to it. I said, what do you mean? He goes, those 3 glasses of wine probably cost me about $2,000 right now.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So you truly do get what you pay for with alcohol, because that flavor, I will never forget that flavor in my life. It was like I tasted where they harvested it from. I tasted the soil. I tasted everything. It was crazy. Wow. Yeah. So these people who are aficionados of wine, who taste this in every glass of wine, you know what? Good for you. But I just know me, and that is, I like expensive wine, apparently. That's what I like. So.
Hey, that's not that bad. That you don't indulge in it very often, then.
I never do. Because I can't justify paying thousands of dollars for something I'm going to consume. I can't justify that cost. I can't do it.
When we were in Italy, my mom used to be, I'm very proud of her because she has kicked her Diet Coke habit. But when we were in Italy, we wouldn't allow her to drink soda because the soda was so much more expensive than the wine. So every night at dinner, we would have a bottle of wine between the three of us. And again, you can definitely tell a difference because those wines were grown right there in that region. Like you could almost look out the restaurant window and see the vineyard. And it made a huge difference. Experience.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, everywhere around the world, they're so much closer to their food source, especially in Europe. And so you know, they drive the cost down for alcohol or food because they make it right where they source it. So it's not this giant machine where it goes to this production plant and gets lost in the shuffle.
Right.
We mass produce everything here, unfortunately, and that's just the nature of the beast. So that being said, you can find cheap wines that are good. Just do a little bit of research on how it's produced and stuff, and you could find cheap wines that are good and locally sourced. So I would say if you have a vineyard close by to you, go to your local vineyard like you would go to a farmer's market. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know, do that. So like Florida, I didn't realize we had a couple of vineyards around my house, but, you know, I'm not a big wine drinker, so I'm probably never going to go there. But people go there, buy their wines directly from the vineyard. And you know what? There may be pesticides, there may be chemicals, and you can ask the person who's making your wine, what's in your wine? They'll tell you. Mm-hmm. So just be wary and just remember, the cheaper the wine, the more, I guess,
over-processed and...
Yeah. The more trivial the contents are.
Yeah.
Because I just know from every wine connoisseur I've ever talked to, you want something that's been untouched and it naturally develops the flavor over time. So they don't want any chemicals in there messing with it. So just keep that in mind.
We actually, surprisingly, here in Alamogordo, New Mexico, there's a couple wineries and pistachio farms. So as we start to wrap up this episode of our podcast, we have a winner for your ebook.
Oh, awesome. Who is it?
Her name is Jasmine Heinzman. So Jasmine, if you're listening, you have officially won Sanjay's ebook, and we're super excited for you. And if you're not listening, we will let you know through email and get in touch with you that way. So that's super exciting. It was a great contest, and I'm sure we'll be running more like it.
Yes, no, that's fantastic, and I think she'll enjoy the book. It's got recipes, it's got, and if she prints it out, there's a food diary that's just that section she can print out as well, so she can use that as well. But that is, so far we've gotten great reviews on the book, and everybody who's seen it, read it, have given nothing but positive feedback, and I hope she enjoys it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited for her. And as we're wrapping up and talking about announcements, Sanjay, we have some more announcements. What are we going to do tomorrow?
Oh, yeah. So tomorrow, I know you and I have been talking about people, you know, having a lot of similar questions, but, you know, kind of being afraid to ask those questions. And, you know, so you and I kind of thought of a way to create a more supportive environment for them. So tomorrow what we're going to do is we're going to do a live session, a Q&A with people in a group setting where you can ask any question on nutrition, because more than likely the questions you ask will be the same question somebody next to you asks.
Right.
And we'll be discussing that in a live format. And any question is on the table, nothing's off limits. And hopefully this will motivate one, few, or everybody in the discussion group to make some changes to have a more positive effect on their life.
Well, and something that I've really been learning, number one, before we started this show, I really thought that I knew a lot about nutrition and fitness. And I do pride myself on the fact that I research and educate myself on these things, but there's no shortage of learning something new. And things that I thought were healthy, I've learned are not so healthy. And I've also learned there's, ways to become healthy without turning your life upside down. And that's something that I love about talking to you, Sanjay, and about the recipes in your book and your stories, because it's not about, a complete overhaul, just drop everything and be miserable and in a bad mood, there's ways to ease yourself into it and to make these changes so that they do last a lifetime and not just for a brief fleeting moment.
No, that's exactly right. So, when you think about nutrition, you think about fitness, I'll leave it with this note. Okay. It's such a daunting subject. And, I was in the medical field for 10 plus years, and, they say that you practice medicine, right? Because you're always learning something new. Guess what? You practice nutrition and fitness. Okay. You practice it because I'm learning something new every day. You've taught me some things, everybody I've run into, every one of my clients has taught me some things, and I take all that information, I make it part of my own, because the moment you say to yourself, I kind of know everything, that's the moment you realize you know nothing.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
And so I'm learning from you, I'm learning from our audience, and I'm learning from everybody I run into, because here's the thing. Always, always, always question your source. If you don't like something I say, question me. I'm fine with that, because you know what? I may have missed something. I made a mistake. Question me if you need to, because I question all my sources as well. And so never, never, ever, ever just take somebody's word for it. I do this for a living because I'm passionate about it, but I'm always questioning my sources. I'm always questioning the information I get. That being said, one of the best things you ever said on our last show was, when you go to your doctor, just don't take their word for it. Question it and ask, why is it this way? Can we do it another way? Do I have to take a pill? All these questions, always ask, always ask, always ask, because at the end of the day, the person that's responsible for your health is you and nobody else.
Exactly. And you know what? It's so powerful to ask questions. That is something I've learned in the last few years when creating with Crystal Honest Talk and Honest Birth Talk, is how much power there is in asking a question. It's not stupid. It shouldn't make you feel stupid. It should make you feel powerful, because that you're gaining knowledge to better yourself. So on that note, you can find Sanjay and I every week on Honest Talk Radio, Wednesday nights, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Mountain. And we would love to answer any and all of your questions, and we'll be live tomorrow to do that. And Sanjay has partnered with us, and we are super, super excited because he has special offers specific for our audience. And you can find those offers at store.honesttalkinternational.com. And also, I would highly encourage you to jump on there, if you haven't already, and schedule a free consultation with Sanjay, because it is worth its weight in gold. So.
No, I appreciate it. And like I said, I'm so excited about this partnership. We've been working together now for almost close to a year.
Yeah.
And had the pleasure of meeting you in person at Speakers Convention and then at the Bestie Weekend. So I'm excited. And as my platform grows and the TV show grows, we hope to work with you more and grow your platform as well.
Absolutely. Well, I look forward to next Wednesday night. And for those of you that are listening, please subscribe to our podcast, Honest Talk Radio, The Food Talk, and don't be afraid to ask your questions, because that's what we're here for. This show is for you, to help you on your journey to health and wellness.